personally see, and you will also be seeing when you emerge as a emerge having the career as a electronics engineer. There is a definite demand versus supply gap. Now this is quite a funny, if you allow me to say so, a situation in India, especially when we churn out so many engineers every year. Uh, Lakhs of engineers come out well trained. The people from tier one colleges, of course, get into different consultancy jobs or different jobs, which may or may not be taking advantage of the training that they had as an electronics engineer. So down the line, what is happening in this industry is we don't have well-trained engineers for specific jobs of, let's say, ASIC designer or FPGA designer, high-speed board design, PCB design, IoT device engineering. We don't have. So we need to train those people at later point of time, and that becomes a huge demand versus supply gap. We and people like us who take many people, we uh, get introduced to the fresh engineers, we always see that their skills don't match what is requiring the job. Now, how do we remove this mismatch? Is constant skill upgrading. There are various startups you would be hearing about. Of course, software startups are more famous. Maybe the app based startups are more famous, but there are definitely device or product idea based startups. Like there are startups who are making, and it is very topical, like in COVID-19 situation. There are startups which came out very quickly with a India designed ventilator, which is a electronics device, right? It requires a good amount of electronics training. And one of the design was done as an incubator company in IIT. So this kind of product idea based startups are increasing day by day. There are people who have come up with startups making a hand sanitizing solution, remote or secure hand sanitizer solution. There are enormous amount of robotics being introduced into our factories. Now, these factories need not be electronic equipment manufacturer. It can be a pharmaceutical company. It can be a huge pharmaceutical company which is automating the, let's say, vaccine production. And at every stage, it's changing from having a production engineer to having more robotics included. Now, don't get me wrong when I say that robotics is replacing the job profile, but there are requirement of trained electronics engineer to run those lines. When I say lines, those plants, robotized, more automated factory. And you all would have heard that oil, which was running the world and was considered as black gold, right? Now is slowly getting replaced by data. Each and every time, like this streaming service that we are going through, or uh, the different courses that you see through the online, uh, the WhatsApp that you use, the Facebook that you use. Okay, Facebook is becoming a little old fashioned now, but all of these are churning data, and all this data needs to be analytic driven, and they can be used to push more commodities to the world. Like if you search, simple term, if you search on the net, let's say a air ticket from Mumbai to Delhi, I can assure you, you will see in next time you open your Google Mail, Gmail, you will see a lot of ads for different ticket service. So this data is getting churned, privacy concerns set up apart, but this is creating jobs for electronics engineer in various ways. I will talk about that more.
ఇంకా ఏం
So
పోలేదా ఇది?
I hope that was not a question, but fine. And electronics job market is growing by 7 to 8% per year. which as per se may look single digit, low single digit, but for a nation like India, it's huge. The total market size of semiconductor alone is 2 billion worth of US dollars in India, designed in India and consumed in India. I am not taking the phones, or then it would be exponential. Sorry. India emerging as a design hub for world semiconductor requirement. Any top semiconductor manufacturer has a design house in India, whether it is Texas Instrument, which has the largest R&D center outside US in India, or NXP, or Xilinx. Everybody has their design hub in India, and that's where electronics engineers are in huge demand. So these are some of the trends, and you will be pleased to know that you, as a trained electronics engineer, can leverage these trends, can ride on this wave to gain uh, good exposure as well as good career. We all know, we have been hearing about this since late 1990s, maybe, that we are an emerging market. Now, many of my young friends do ask me that uh, till when we will be emerging market only? Shall we ever become a emerged market or advanced market? The good news is, being an emerging market, because our population is huge, our uh, pay parity is at the best, we have a huge market, so the scope for engineers like us is more. Now, what are the emerging market core electronics jobs that I see, at least? Of course, this is not exhaustive list. There are various sensor engineers required. Now, in and around you, you require some sensing to be done. One live example I can talk about, which is quite recent. Uh, there are cold storage for, let's say, this is the season of mangoes, right? Now, mangoes will get harvested in next few weeks, but by the time they are exported, or they need to reach to the retail market, they need to be preserved somewhere, and those preservations are done in typical cold storage. Now the cold storage areas are becoming very, very advanced. They need to be remotely monitored, they need to be sensed. So those sensors are available, like temperature sensor, humidity sensor, even pH sensor, or air quality sensors. Now engineers, electronic engineers, require to have good knowledge of sensors, apart from having traditional MCU, MPU knowledge base, to gain these jobs as sensor engineers, making a bespoke sensor for different use cases or end applications. Of course, embedded design engineers, a lot of jobs available, but this is where core electronics comes into. Smart home consultants, like you go and make a smart home. Various big home makers like L&T or DLF require smart home consultants. You will see advertisements like they are offering smart home equipments as a part of those apartments that they sell. One example can be acoustic. How can the acoustic of a smart home be enhanced? People are going for, of course, rich people maybe, who are going for good media room within their house. Emerging some technologies are machine learning and artificial intelligence. There also, electronics engineers can get good jobs and have good prospects as IoT device engineers, also designers. I already talked about factory automation. There are a lot of companies who take different technologies and integrate them, and finally make life easy for their end customer. These are called SIs, or system integrators. Lot of prospect for electronic engineers there also. Now, these are some of the electronics, core electronics jobs which we all can take advantage of. Some of the non-traditional offshoot of these are technical writers. Now, when there are so many semiconductors being made, so many things are getting done, you will be seeing some of the communities, specially dedicated for electronics. Maybe you can see a community like Hackster, or you can see a community like various semiconductor communities, analog devices community, or TI E2E forums. All of this requires technical writers, people who have solid background in electronics, and these jobs are pretty easy. You should have a flair of writing. You should like or love writing, and a open mind to experiment. Now you all know that there are different cloud connectivity coming. So Azure is there, there is Google Cloud, Ali Cloud, or even other private clouds are coming. Now there would be device engineers required who will be using different protocols to ingest those data collected from, let's say, sensors or sensor devices to these clouds. And this can be done aptly by electronics designers. In media, of course, many of you, I'm aware, are from Mumbai, and you have this uh, Bollywood. So today's most of the films, or rather all of them, use special effects, and these are trained electronics engineers who are behind those special effects. How to do that, how to use those equipments, how to make a better experience for the consumer of OTT or uh, films. Then increasingly there are human machine interface. So these are some of the equipment designers, and you will be surprised to know Maharashtra, Pune is one of the largest HMI equipment companies. There are other places like Gurgaon and in other Gujarat also. A lot of HMI equipment manufacturers are there, and they require trained electronics graduate. Not only because of COVID-19 situation, but uh, there is always a lot of medical devices being manufactured in India. Of course, we are not at the level of US, where, let's say, pacemakers get manufactured. But in India also now, uh, world's largest pacemaker has its uh, R&D office, that is Medtronic, or St. Jude's. All of these medical device manufacturers like to take advantage of the engineers that we produce every year. And these are some of the non-traditional, which you may not have considered that job prospects remain. If you just do a search in popular websites like, let's say, Glassdoor and all, with this keywords also, you will see enough jobs or career prospects there. Now I talked about gig economy. Let me again define what is gig economy. What is happening over a period of time is our economy is growing at very fast rate. Now there are different people required, different specialization required, and you can work on this gig economy. Electronics engineers can specially work where uh, more preference is given to people who can learn as they work. And this gig economy definition is slightly shadowy. It's like how this economy can become, can leverage different consultancies and different freelancers, uh, and I personally believe that it's a boon for us. Uh, One unrelated example, like now, nobody can say that after, in his spare time, he doesn't have a job. Uh, if he is open to it, a smart person can get a job as a food delivery guy also. But because so many app creators are there, Swiggy, or others, or Dunzo or others, these are gig economy jobs. In case of electronics engineers also, we see a proliferation of gig economy jobs where people are given or consulted based on hours that they put. So a lot of flexibility coming to the electronics engineers. They can work on two, three projects. Maybe they are working on one device, one project. Uh, of course, they are on role of a consultancy company or by themselves. They are very much expert in a particular domain and they can offer it as their services. So this becomes a big area for us as electronics engineer to get into or leverage this gig economy stuff. Now, when I talk about gig economy, I am mindful about a term called shadow workforce. Large companies, mm, the big fives of India or everywhere, work on contractual workforce. So much so that the big consultancy companies, big SI companies have a workforce who are in contract, maybe of 1 year, 2 year max. And this workforce are equally important than the people who are in permanent job. The point I want to make today is if you are getting such jobs right out of college, don't get into peer pressure that, oh, you are not in a permanent position. It doesn't matter today. Just get into it for learning. If you are getting to learn new technology, get into this workforce of gig economy where you will be paid based on hours or paid based on certain period of time. Don't worry too much that what will happen after the gig is gone or after that consultancy opportunity is gone, because once you gain traction or gain name that you can do a certain expert job, maybe as a design engineer, you will get lot of referrals by word of mouth itself, and you will be part of this big economy. The uh, results and the rewards are huge if you are a little bit smart. Now, what I mean by obsolescence management in a career is you need to constantly learn. We all need to, means including me. Um, if I share my knowledge base, like I got trained as a FPG engineer, but over the period of time, I also worked as a production engineer. I also worked as a, most of the time, I worked as a sales engineer or a product management guy. Now, over a period of time, always the thing that bugs me is, uh, am I getting obsolete? And you also have to challenge yourself that uh, at no point of your career you should be obsolete. Never be in the comfort zone that should I try it out or not. Learn and get into the new learnings and then get into the new jobs. Now, what do I mean by T knowledge? Okay, this is a favorite topic of mine and I will dwell on a little bit more maybe. The T knowledge is you need to have a wide knowledge in multiple disciplines, multiple area of knowledge. Okay, you may be an electronics engineer, fine. Within electronics, there are multiple subgroups. So you need to have a deep dive knowledge, the T point. Deep dive knowledge about one particular. So specialized knowledge, maybe like if I talk about myself, I have knowledge of semiconductor deeply, but I also hold lot of interest in various peripherals, various other things, and that makes you a complete professional. So this T knowledge concept is important. The recruiters, when they talk to you, whether they don't look at whether you are fresher, they measure you from the attitude that you have, from the learning capability that you have. So learn to unlearn what you have not done so far. Have a wide variety of knowledge and a deep specialization. Now, when I talk about deep specialization, many of my uh, young friends have asked me that what happens if that deep knowledge goes out of vogue, out of fashion. So when you go deep into a particular topic, you will be aware that the things are changing. Like earlier, I used to be very proud that I am a hardware engineer. I know a lot of hardware, and used to somehow, without any prejudice, I'll say that I used to think that software engineering is easier or may not be that glamorous. Over a period of time, I understood that uh, the successful marriage between hardware and software is the way to go. So How did I do personally obsolescence management? I learned about cloud. I learned about how the devices gets hooked onto a gateway, and further using MQTT or other protocols goes data gets ingested into cloud. And this happened not because I heard some buzzwords. No, it happened because I went deep into the semiconductor or how it is being used by my customers. So these are some of the points which will help you leverage this emerging economy, the gig economy that we call. And you have to constantly ride like the sea waves, right? When you use a water scooter over sea wave, you need to ride the technical hype cycle. You will hear a lot, okay, maybe I should do a certificate in data analytics or data scientist. Everybody talks about being a data scientist. Uh, I'm not saying that you need not do specialized courses on data science or cyber security, but examine carefully. Is it something that makes you passionate about it? Is it something what makes you technical, makes you better in that? Then only you can ride that hype cycle. Then only you will be obsolescence free in future. Because typical life cycle of an engineer is about 35 to 40 years. So you need to have knowledge at incremental level. At no point your studies or learning should stop, right? So what I am talking about is be open to experiment with multiple ventures. Okay, I got one job as a testing engineer, so fine. I should not learn anything else. No, you should also try to think what other ventures you can do within the ambit of electronics. Freelance work, many people look down onto it, that freelance work, oh, by hour I am getting paid. I don't know when my next 1 hour cycle or billing cycle will come. The economy is such that you will be paid more if you are a freelancer. You'll be respected more if you are a deep knowledgeable guy and do a freelance. I know people who have been doing freelancing job for past 15 years, 20 years successfully. They have their own firm. So what happens is they have come out of getting a job to creating jobs, right? So freelance consultancy finally makes you creator of jobs, and aim to be it. Because you who are hearing this or seeing this session are the future, will take our country further ahead. And if you create more job, we all as a community, as a country, become better. Now we have another maybe 10 minutes, so I will be fast on landscape of the IoT. And IoT is a big topic. It's nothing but Internet of Things. Cisco has come up with beautiful word or variation of it. It's called Internet of Everything. And why we are talking about it? See, there has been wave one from late 70s till early 2000s of using microcontroller. Any equipment you take over, it is either MCU or having a microprocessor inside it, either microcontroller or microprocessor. If it's an equipment, smart equipment, it will have a microcontroller. Now the next wave that is happening since last 10 or 11 years is these microcontrollers are becoming connected. These things are talking with each other. And that's a big scope for us. Not how. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a refrigerator, right? And refrigerators are pretty sturdy home appliance. When I say sturdy, you buy one and next 10 years or 12 years or sometimes 20 years, people keep it without any work, without any problem. But there is one mm, portion of it which gets knocked over completely from time to time. That's the compressor part of the refrigerator. Now, if it's an old design of refrigerator, the compressor knocked off, how do you come to know? You get spoiled vegetables or melted ice creams, which has been kept into that freezer. Not anymore. Today, if you take a Korean made smart refrigerator or even Indian made smart refrigerator, they have connectivity. They have a QR code placed behind where you can scan that QR code, and through the network of your phone, the technician can understand what has gone wrong. Okay, even in it comes into washing machines also. So if the point that I want to make is this is all happening because the electronics within these equipments are becoming connected with each other. Uh, you may be using Alexa, or you may be using uh, various Google devices. All of these are connected. You will hear about soon about a new technology from it is called Alexa Sidewalk, where the network itself will be created by different of the Alexa devices that we have in our home. So it's becoming big, and uh, billions of devices will get connected. Now, what's in it for us? What's in it for you? So there are scopes that the infotainment in a car that we drive will become connected. So already it's happening. If you are in Bangalore or in Hyderabad or in some places in Mumbai also, you'll see these blue bikes, right, from Yulu or others, even Bounce, which are rental bikes, right? You scan it using a QR code. Those are connected bikes, right? So you can find out where it is. How do they find out where that bike has been, or what is the charges that will be there? And connected cars are the next big thing that is coming in India. And a lot of OEMs, when I say OEMs, the Fords and the Volkswagens of the world are coming and setting up factories where electronics engineering will be paid hugely to work on these technologies. Now, when I talk about connected devices, there is one topic that you should be aware of, which is security in those devices. Now, when anything is connected over internet, it's hackable. Uh, so you as engineer need to be one step ahead than the hackers, ethical or otherwise. And those devices needs to be secure. I see a tremendous dearth of trained engineers who can work on cybersecurity or device security, the hardware security, device up security. Now, once you are trained engineer as an electronics engineer, you also work on cloud-based dashboards. Now, yeah, you sensed something using the sensors. You put it onto the gateway. You then ingested the data into the cloud. But finally, the decision makers need to see those data in the dashboards. And after that, there would be analytics based on that. And who can do it better? Who knows what has been sensed at the device level? Who knows what is need to be done in using those data? Now I talked about what are those apps and other things, right? So every device is coming with a app now, whether it's a smartwatch, a watch, Apple Watch would be, or GOII, GOI ones also comes with the apps, all designed in India, right? And there are numerous automation jobs which is coming. All the factories will have those jobs done. Last but not least, I will touch upon this topic. Many people talk about this and some think that it's a buzzword, Industry 4.0. This started in Germany. They call it I 4.0. And there's a natural progression in this. Uh, the industrial revolution started with steam engine. That was Industry 1.0. Next, it moved to telegraph, TVs, communication, and that became Industry 2.0. At the cups of this communication and all, space race started. And then came computers. Uh, there was, I remember distinctly, there were a lot of, in the late 80s, people used to fear that computers will take the jobs away. But what happened is these computers didn't take away the job, but happened that it became more and more job. Automation increased, and automation helped into Industry 4.0. That is where the new Industry 4.0 is coming. More digitalization is happening in real time. data sensing is happening. And this is where we as smart engineers can operate those smart machines. And when it scales up, it brings more jobs, right? So I think what I talked about in is a lot of topics. I tried to touch upon each of it. Maybe this will trigger some ideas into it, and that will help. Hope this session was useful for you. Now, I'm open for any questions that you may have.
So Sambit, what is the impact of China? Because I believe most of the chips and microcontrollers are being made in China.
Okay. Uh, See, China, of course, has a lead over the whole world. Uh, it's called the industry basket of semiconductors. World cannot live without Chinese-made microcontrollers, Chinese-made devices. There is another country, rather more important than China, if you allow me to use that, that is Taiwan. Uh, 90% of devices are getting made in companies like TSMC, which is fabricated. So the designs are getting done in US or in various parts of the Europe or even in India. But final manufacturing, of course, happening in China. So impact of China is huge. Uh, US started taking steps. You will be seeing that Micron is setting up their Micron, which is a large memory manufacturer, is setting up their new factory in US. There are factories in US which makes, but obviously because of workforce maturity, they cost more. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
That was a very detailed and actually a very layman oriented explanation about the various career prospects as an electronics engineer. So, anyone else has any other questions? You can please ask. You can wait a minute or two.
Yeah.
Sure, then I guess no questions. Anyone? Shravan, do you have questions?
Hello.
Yeah, Ruchi.
Yeah. I don't have any question. I just wanted to say it was a very wonderful session and quite enlightening. And thank you so much for touching upon so many different topics. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ruchi.
So I guess that's all for today. Thanks so much, Samsandip. Thanks for accepting the invitation and taking out time. I know you're quite busy, but I'm sure that this session will help a lot, and I've answered many questions as well. So
Thank you.
thank you, and
Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks for
So
the
next
time
week
and
we'll
presence.
come up with one more session that's on automation. So if anyone interested, we'll be uploading the link again on the WhatsApp and YouTube as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks all of you. Bye bye.